I'm gonna try to avoid straight up reviewing the Suicide Squad in this video, mostly because, let's be fair, if you have any interest in watching this movie, you probably already have. But I am gonna touch on some of the things in the film that I like, some that I didn't like, and some that I'm kinda mixed on. So, two big disclaimers for this video. One, I'll be majorly spoiling the first 10 minutes of this film, God forgive me for my sins. And two, footage is still really hard to come by, so you'll have to forgive the fact that there's going to be a lot of unrelated stock footage. You know, these things just kind of can't be helped. Anyway, let's get cracking. I'm sure we all remember the original cast trailer for this movie.
You know the deal. Successfully complete the mission, you get 10 years off your sentence.
It made it look like DC's villainous counterpart to Avengers Infinity War. Say what you want about Infinity War, but it did a really good job of making sure that most characters have their own defining moments. Mostly, anyway. If you're a fan of, say, Captain America, he has a moment in Infinity War. If you're a fan of Star-Lord, he has a moment in Infinity War. It's good. So when we saw this casting list of excellent actors and actresses, it's safe to say that we were all pretty interested in it. I mean, look at the cast. Look at the characters. There are some weird choices, certainly, but that's kind of the point of this series. You know, it shines a light on the weirder rogues in DC's repertoire. Plus, using less valuable DC characters like Batman and Superman means that they can get away with more weird, interesting, and unique character arcs. 17 actors and characters revealed. More names show up at the end. It all looks so pristine. Except when I tell you that 7 of these characters die in the first 10 minutes and serve zero purpose for the rest of the film. Seriously, looking at the end list of actors, if we remove all of them who have less than 10 minutes of screen time, we lose Rooker, Fillion, Courtney, Borg, Ng, Davidson, Gunn, and Waititi. My boy Taika gets it worst of all, with literally one line of dialogue in the whole film. Yeah, it's a good line, but come on, man, he's in the fucking trailer! Is this a bad thing? Not necessarily. This could be a flashback story setting up the grim fate we see these characters reach. You know, something like Blood Money, where it starts off with the main character being dead, so that we can explore all the things that happened that led them to this moment. Alas, that's not the case either. So, why do such a radically bold thing for your film? Subversion of expectations. This actually isn't the first time this has happened. You remember that old Kevin Smith film with Ben Affleck and J-Lo, Jersey Girl? Probably not. It wasn't very good. Probably the thing it's most famous for now is George Carlin's last ever performance before he died. But the hook was pretty interesting. The adverts made it look like a kind of couple's love story, albeit with the main focus on Ben Affleck's character. But Smith made the decision to kill off J-Lo's character during childbirth, so she's barely in it at all. It was secretly a comedy drama, which was, even at the time, a pretty strong decision. That's kind of what happened here, just on a much grander scale. And honestly, I'm still a little torn on the decision for this particular franchise. Yeah, you got a shock out of me, and you got some good laughs from the first fight scene, but outside of that, it means that we now know there's no chance in hell that these characters, these actors, these interesting casting choices are ever going to be fully utilized, because they're all dead. Nice. The actual Suicide Squad consists of about 5 or 6 random fucks. Likeable random fucks, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near the scale and depth of character interaction that we were promised, and that honestly just kind of feels like wasted potential. Pete Davidson and Nathan Fillion could have stolen this film if they only had the chance, but they're not given the chance. But disregarding your opinion on the opening scene, the rest of the film still stands as pretty good. There's still some, good dialogue. I mean, of course there is. Look at who wrote it. And some really well cut together moments. But it also feels like it doesn't really want you to give a shit about it. One character has a massive moment of triumph in the big finale, and then is immediately killed with no ceremony or nuance. Like, yeah, I get it, but you already did that joke with like 7 other characters at the start of the film. It's not shocking anymore. If anything, I found it kind of annoying. You know, let us enjoy the visceral satisfaction of this character succeeding. The really interesting discussion to have here, I think, and the main bulk of the video, is the immense amount of creative freedom that James Gunn had when he made this movie. DC have had an issue with a lot of their films in that they mostly feel soulless and a lot like products, more so than Marvel movies sometimes, which is a big achievement. This all changed when Justice League released to some of the absolute worst reception a superhero movie on this scale has ever received. And in the end, DC threw their hands up and basically said, fuck it, do what you want. So Zack Snyder did. Zack Snyder and James Gunn feel like a perfect pair. One's an undeniably talented visual filmmaker with a lot of pedigree, and one's a very auteur, mad genius with more ideas and creative whims than I've had hot meals. Seriously, they both seemed like they'd play to each other's strengths and cover the other's weaknesses. Side note, if you know what movie I pinched that line from, you're one of the real ones. So why am I struggling to manifest the passion and love for this movie that so many other people seem to have? A number of reasons. One is, quite simply, fatigue. You know, I'm so bored of these biggest and most important moments in history ever superhero movies, when some of my favourite movies, even superhero movies, have had a much more personal approach. Spiderverse, for example, remembers that we're here for the characters first and the action second. You know, otherwise we'd watch literally any other superhero movie, because that's all these movies are nowadays, is just action. And my favourite scene from that movie is just Miles jumping off a building. It's not a big end-of-the-world fight, although they do earn that at the end of the film. He just jumps off the building.
Like, what's up, danger? Like, what's up, danger? Like, what's up, danger? Like, what's up, danger?
Made them myself. They fit perfectly.
Can't stop me now. Travel 200 miles, I'm knocking at your door. And I don't really care if you ain't done wrong. What's up, danger? Don't be a stranger.
Hence, having the big bad guy basically be a kaiju and having a character literally say out loud,
"We've got a freaking kaiju up in this shit!"
It's not smart anymore. Do something interesting with it. I mean, who fucking cares? Oh no, it's a big violent monster and now they have to hit it really hard. I guess they better work together to fucking... I don't know, it's just a shame because the rest of the film is so good at being subversive that it feels really disappointing that it ends up going to a generic final boss fight. It doesn't feel like the right ending for this kind of film, and that's a shame. There are also some weird scenes that really don't work for me. Polka Dot Man has a whole subplot about how he sees everyone as his mother, who he hates because she experimented on him as a child. And this manifests in 3 specific scenes. One of which where he's like grinding on who he sees as his mum, while other versions of his mum are surrounding him. It's supposed to be funny, but it just kind of struck me as really weird. The fact that it kind of hits you out of nowhere as well. The film subverts expectations in a good way sometimes. A prime example being a part early in the film where the guys try to save Rick Flag, then followed by the best scene in the film where Harley takes some serious control after a situation she's in. But sometimes it drifts a bit too much into weirdness, and I can't say I got on board with it. And here's the reason I think the film did end up getting as weird as it did. Full creative control. Now, full creative control is a blessing for creatives like me. You know, the ability to experiment and play around with whatever mad ideas you have, it's the dream. But sometimes creative restrictions breed some of the best results. I'm reminded of an interview Brad Bird had when he discusses a fight he had with one of the producers of The Incredibles. There was a disagreement with how to handle a scene, and they had a very powerful exchange of dialogue, which really kind of indicates why the two men needed each other.
Look, I'm just trying to get us across the finish line.
I'm trying to get us across the finish line in first place!
When reflecting on this exchange, Brad gives a very interesting opinion of the whole situation.
I don't want him to tell me, whatever you want, Brad. I want him to tell me, if you do X, we're not going to be able to do Y. I'll fight, but I'll have to make the choice. I love working with John because he'll give me the bad news straight to my face. Ultimately, we both win. If you ask within Pixar, we are known as being efficient. Our movies aren't cheap, but the money gets on the screen because we're open in our conflict. Nothing is hidden.
It feels to me that at some points, James Gunn really needed a John Walker to make sure that he doesn't just spunk nearly $200 million on whatever he wants to try out. I know this video has sounded quite negative, and I don't mean for it to be, because The Suicide Squad is genuinely good. There's a lot about the film that I really like. It's not as good as Birds of Prey, but it's leagues better, if you'll pardon the pun, than the original Suicide Squad. But sometimes, when a creative has to do the best they can with certain restrictions, they find unique and creative ways to turn those restrictions into benefits. A film like Whiplash doesn't need a big end-of-the-world action scene. A film like Get Out doesn't need to rely on destroying a city to show us what a big deal the bad guys are. They're just more personal movies. And despite the film being very personal to James Gunn, I'd have liked to have seen more intimate plot moments with the characters, and not so much the director. The other issue with full creative control is that some things will only work for you, specifically. I always try to show my scripts to at least one other person, just to see if it lands for a fresh pair of eyes. This feels a lot like everyone just kind of got on board with the director's vision. I mean, rightly so, but the vision itself was never questioned. I'd love to see more about the making of, how they got it off the ground, how much DC relenting on the Snyder Cut impacted Gunn's freedom to make the movie he wants, general audiences be damned. It's interesting to think about. So, to conclude, I liked Suicide Squad. It was a good film, 7 out of 10. I can't help but feel like a little more reeling in from the powers that be would have really elevated it though. A bit more subversion where it would have been effective, a bit less where it just kind of comes across as disjointed and jarring. It's a good film, but I find it more interesting as a talking piece. Hence this video. Talking of talking, I've got some... that's such a weird line. I've got some pretty interesting videos lined up, including a retrospective of a classic UK retailer. Yes, another one. An analysis on the best streaming show currently available, which I've made no secret about on my Twitter, and a 10-year anniversary retrospective of one of the biggest games of the PS3 360 era. If any of those sound interesting, please subscribe so you don't miss out. Also, a like and a little comment. Yeah, if there's something you want to add to the conversation, it goes a really long way to help the channel grow, so I'd appreciate it. We can all be respectful here. If you like the weird stuff that Suicide Squad pulls, let me know. I also have a Patreon, but I'm a small channel uploading very sporadically, so, you know, who cares, right? I could never ask anybody to pledge to that. I'd more have it set up in case people want to, but I don't expect anybody to at this stage, you know what I mean? Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.